This is task 1E part 1, where you're asked to create some validation rules for the booking form on the restaurants page. Now before we can do that, we need to actually set up the form. So if we go back in the instructions, we're told here about the form. We're told what fields need to be included on there, and we're also told that once it's been filled in, the submit button needs to be clicked, and so we'll need a submit button, and then a confirmation page should be displayed with information submitted by the user. Now this is the most difficult part about it. OCR really haven't thought about how students are going to achieve that, not even within something like Dreamweaver. This is extremely complicated. Particularly when the data has to be saved to the file bookings.csv, it requires lots and lots of coding. Fortunately for you, I've created a generic script, and because it's generic and can be used with any website, it's therefore a tool, and it's a software tool that can be used. So that is going to help you with that part of it. However, if you can't get your form working, it doesn't matter, you'll get at least some of the marks. So there's a bit of differentiation here as to how much of this you decide to do and how much you don't do. Now if we have a look, we changed our CSS file earlier, so we need to put it back to what it was before. So what I'm going to do, okay, is change this one to sheep square new, copy our original, and this one will now just be the one that's called sheepsquare.css, and we'll hold the stuff in it. And we'll probably need to just close this down, so I'm just going to close Composer, and then we need to of course start it again, and hopefully when we go to our pages they'll be back to the colours that they should be. There we go. We've got yellow titles and blue along the side. Just make that a little bit wider and then it looks fine. So we want the restaurants page. Here it is. Okay, and we're going to add our form in here. The first thing we need to do is we need to insert the space for the form. So if we go to the insert menu and form, we can then define the form. Now the form name isn't actually essential, but it makes sense to call it something sensible. So booking details. Now this is a bit where you need to use that script I was telling you about. Now if you choose that it's not gonna, this is a bit too hard, that's fine. Just put in all the stuff to do with the fields, print it out and get the marks to print out, but don't worry about this bit. But it's not too difficult. So basically you need to do this: http://www.paulong.net/form2file.php. Now what this will do is this will generate a generic confirmation page, and it will store the files to a generic file name or a file name of your choice. If you can use PHP on your own school servers, great. Feel free to download that PHP script and use it on your school server and do it that way instead. But this is a nice simple way to do it, and there is a way of sorting out the fact that lots of people are going to be saving to the same file. We'll look at that later. We also need post, because we're posting the data up to this script from our browser up to the server. So we'll click on OK. You can see now these dotted lines, that's where your form's going to go. So I'm just going to create a couple of spaces so we've got space for it. Now with the form, you'd normally want your field names along the left, your fields where you're going to enter the data along the right, and then your submit button at the bottom, with of course some instructions. Okay, so I'm going to put here, to book a table, please fill in the form below. It's very likely there could be marks for instructions on the mark scheme. It's a very fair thing to ask for. Now to lay it out, I'm going to use a table. So I'm going to insert a table, and we need a name, email address, mobile phone, date required, time required, number of guests, and we need one more, so we'll go for a 7x2 table. Or we'll just go for that now, and we'll add the other one later. Now if we look at the properties of the table, we'll be able to remove these lines as well if you want to. Now you don't have to remove the lines, but you can remove the lines, and it just means that it looks a little bit better. So I'll change my border to be 0 pixels, and here we can add in our 7th row as well. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is put the name of all the fields in the left hand side. So we're going to do that. I'll do that for you. So as you can see, I've put those field names in. Now what we need to do is put the information about each of these. Now one of the things that we should be aware of, whenever we use a name, we should separate this into forename and surname, so it's atomic data. So what I'm going to do is just insert a row here, so we can change this into forename, first name, Christian name, and this one into surname or last name or family name. Now we need to put in the field where the data will be entered. So if we go to here, insert form, you can then see there's an option for form field, and we want text. Now if your form is going to work, you need to have field names. If you're not that fussed about your form working because it's become quite complicated, you can just leave this bit alone. But what I'm going to do is call that forename. Now if you can't see that, just make sure you select more properties. You'll then be able to see this bit here where we can now specify the field size. I think 30 should be about right for forename. Now once you've done that, you just need to repeat that for these, okay? But we might use some different lengths. So for example, for mobile phone number, we'll go for 15, let's say, date for 10, number of guests about 5. And then we'll move on to doing the submit button. So here's all our fields. Now you could just do a text field for restaurant if you think you might have some difficulty with the drop down list, but the drop down list isn't that difficult, so I'll just go through how you do that. We go to insert form, and then this time instead of a form field we choose selection list. Okay, now our list needs to have a name, so I'm going to call it restaurant because that's what it is. This is what will appear in your confirmation screen, so it's really important that you type these how you want. And then we're going to add the 3 options. Okay, so we'll have La Caverna. We'll leave the value as it is, so it will look as if it says La Caverna, and La Caverna will be the value that's sent as well. We'll add another option, which will be La Grill, and the other option, which is Dilshad. I'll click on OK, and that is done for us. Finally, we need to have a submit button that will submit the field. So if we go to insert form, and then here we've got form field, so I'll select that, and instead of text we want it to be a submit button. Okay, now the field name needs to be submit, and the field value needs to be submit with a capital S, because that's what will appear on the button, and also it's important for the script when the script comes later on. Now what we can do is save that, and we'll press F5 and just see what it looks like. So let's have a look. Here's our form. Now don't put anything in or click on submit because it won't work yet because there's some other information the script needs. We'll just check our drop down box works. That's brilliant, and now we'll be able to move on to do the validation.